This is basic knowledge. And then it's a product, and then the product goes to the market. And as you can see from what we put there, it is meant to be that the market test can send you back information that goes all the way back to where you first started. Are you following, guys? Thank you very much. So you asked me to talk about purpose for education. I told you that part of why I wondered whether it was worthwhile on the part of citizens for me to do this is that 7 years ago, we did, on the basis of the diagnostics, show that the definition of purpose can be simple and yet profound. So, for example, our definition of purpose said, nurture the mind, create a good society, compete globally. Can you repeat that after me? Nurture the mind, create a good society, compete globally. Does that resonate in terms of when you look at the way that education is conceived today in modern society and in any community? Because some of the people run away with the idea of education as purely an economic activity, forgetting the social equity, egalitarian society necessity for education. And so that creates a good society is so important. Nurture the mind is as important as the fact that the cognitive capacity of citizens that get nourished through education as a force for learning. Because what education does is to teach the citizen how to learn. It teaches the citizen how to learn so that the citizen can solve problems. And therefore, it does not in any way prescribe the kind of citizens, the kind of problems that citizens can solve. Should they elect that the only problems they want to solve are problems of a certain nature, being equipped with the skills of learning will offer them the opportunity to learn to provide solutions to whatever problems they seek to solve in life. So education nurtures the mind, basically allowing the citizen to be somebody that will permanently be on a course of discovery. Life becomes a journey of discovery. Is that not so? For many of us, you would never go back to the classroom, but you're learning every day, simply because of the capacity for critical thinking, the capacity to think that education gives. Nurture the mind, create a good society, compete globally. And you know, you saw that thing, we can. This was in 2006. We didn't even know that if we had known, we would have really registered this thing globally. Because by now, we would be making plenty of money, you know? Because, I mean, later on, Obama came along and decided to talk about we can. Well, we talked about it before he did. So we should have registered this globally as our own property right for Nigeria, isn't it? You know, so we can. We said that. It was a clarion call to say we can nurture the mind, we can create a good society, we can compete globally. But it was much more. It stood for we educate for character, aptitude, and our needs. Do you see how it takes all the aspects again? The cognitive skills, the affective skills, and the motor skills. So all of this we captured in that mantra, we can. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we discovered in the course of our analysis to underpin the reforms was that education and the purpose that it has served societies has been historically relevant to the stage that each society found itself. So, for example, our pre-colonial and immediate post-colonial Nigeria was a Nigeria that served as an outpost of the colonial lords. And so it was an extractive relationship where they simply required basic literacy on the part of the great Africans. If they could just know how to, read and write, that was just good enough. And so emphasis was on giving primary education. And, every other higher level of education was exclusive to a certain segment of the society who were necessary for the colonial lords to operate their system. So pre-colonial Africa, post-colonial Africa focused a lot on basic education, primary education. And even after independence, the focus on the purpose for education continued to be about the socialization process, that people needed to be literate in order to socially interact and integrate into a modern society. And that meant that access to education, universal basic education, defined the focus. As time has gone by, not just in Nigeria, but in much of Africa and the rest of the developing world, including, like countries like India face similar kind of situation. What has happened is that when you look at Africa today, and many of you are wired into economy, global economy, Africa today, in the last decade plus, started a new trajectory of economic performance. That new trajectory of economic performance, it means that Africa now has been generating reasonable growth compared to what used to be the case. I'm sure everybody knows about this. So an average of 5.4% of growth until the global economic crisis. And when the economic crisis came, took down a lot of nations, it took down Africa's growth rate, but quickly, Africa coughed back up. And today, Africa is yet moving in the region of a possible 5% and above rate of growth. For a continent that used to experience negative growth rates that were reasonably less than its rate of population growth, that's a new season. That's the reason you hear about the rising Africa, and got, organizations like the Economist, which many of you that are here read, to recant of their very misguided characterization of Africa as a hopeless continent. How can the continent that you and I come from be hopeless? It's not possible, can it? No. So all of that improvement in growth and this new season for Africa, a rising Africa, has meant that you needed to scrutinize once again the purpose for education. So we know that so far the purpose for education, where universalization of access has powered what many countries are likely going to achieve, which is MDG on education, which says give as many people in your society access to basic education. MDG, goal on education. A number of countries are on track to achieving it. Unfortunately, our own country is not going to achieve it because 2015 is already here, and I don't think that is the most important goal in 2015. I don't know what you heard,